Hi, my name is Mintriet Lee, and in this project, my role has been a little bit of everything. Mainly, I've been working on the back end, so setting up the infrastructure in Google Cloud and using buckets and functions to make this project work. Also, I worked on the two data collections that we have in Firestore, one that logs the queries and one that logs the documents uploaded. Lastly, I worked on the front end for the guest user and the admin page. The admin page is not completely connected yet. However, the guest user page is perfectly fine as you can see. All right, so here is our user interface. This is from the guest user's perspective. There's no login right now, so anybody could go on this link and just start asking questions. Um, Down here we have a little chat box, so you can ask questions directly to the model. And here we have some example. For example, what is the guest policy? And it instantly returned the guest policy that it has from the documents that we have uploaded to it. Right now it says here the two sources that it found it from, the Housing Policy Code of Conduct chunk, 0, and 1. Right now we're dividing the PDF into chunks so it's faster and easier to retrieve for the RAG system. However, we want it to say PDF later on just because it's easier for the user to understand that. Here we have another question. What is the policy on partying? Um, it does not explicitly outline a policy titled partying, but it could still find like relevant to social gatherings so it understands the context of the question. And also here is our standard for stuff that it doesn't have. So what is the policy on soccer tournaments? So it will always respond no relevant policy information found for your query. Here we have the admin page, so you have to log in first. Right now we haven't connected the login yet, so it's just a hard-coded password right now. But if we sign in, you can see that the admin can upload policy documents so that later on the guest that uses it can ask questions based off those policies. Here we have, for example, uploaded a policy on policies PDF, and it will say that it takes 2 to 3 minutes before the documents will be searchable. So for our deliverables completed, the first one is that we have an event-driven ingestion pipeline. So whenever we upload a PDF to the bucket, it automatically triggers the ingestion pipeline where it extracts the text and then splits into manageable chunks of about 500 characters and store the processed chunks for later use. And we can see this here in the ingest document. This function is for the ingestion pipeline. Next on, we have the embedding pipeline is when we're done ingesting and processing the document, then we embed those using the Vertex AI embedding model with this function that we have. Also event-driven, it waits for the ingestion pipeline and then it goes to the embed chunk, which then gives us the embedded chunks JSON files that is in the bucket. So here we have the processed, which is the .txt here, and then we have the embedded, which is the .json, and next we have the RAG query pipeline. So that's our third deliverable. The system loads the embeddings into memory and then performs cosine similarity and then sends them back to that context to Gemini to generate a response. So that we have in the response function here. Let's see. It's an answer function actually. Here we load those embeddings into memory and then perform the cosine similarity. And we can also show this by, for example, this here. When we ask it, the guest policy, it uses those chunks and those JSON files to find the embeddings and then generate this response for us. Next one is our CI/CD pipeline. We fully set up a CI/CD pipeline using the GitHub Actions. Right now we have had a little problem because of the IAM permissions. However, everything is running fine, all the test cases, and it's deploying to the Google Cloud, but it's still giving us failure here because of the IAM permissions. So we still have to fix that. And lastly is our Firestore. We have two collections right now, aka our database. One is for our documents uploads. So each year is each document uploads. Here we have, for example, the which PDF it is, how many chunks it outputted, and also the timestamp on when it was uploaded. Our next collection is queries. So here we have each query, for example, what is the query or what is the query text that they gave us, and what is the answer that it generated for us, and also how many chunks you use and how long it took, and the timestamp of this. Overall, these deliverables demonstrate a complete end-to-end RAG system, from document ingestion to embedding to intelligent query, all the way to deployment and monitoring. So some of the challenges that we met during implementing this project was mostly IAM permissions in Google Cloud. We had issues where some services could not access others, such as Cloud Functions accessing Cloud Storage or Vertex AI. The problem was that we didn't fully understand which roles and permission were required. We tried different roles and configurations, checked the logs, and used documentations. Eventually, we resolved most issues by assigning the correct roles, but this was a huge challenge for us. And yeah, we ran into this challenge also using the GitHub Actions, where we're, as you can see here, permission, run services set IAM policy, denied on resource. We're running into so many issues with that, but we've got the project running. It's just the only thing we have left is this GitHub Actions IAM permission. Also, we had some difficulty debugging Cloud Functions and Cloud Run services because of error messages were not always clear. So to solve this, we used the Cloud login and tested components separately to identify where the issue was coming from. In conclusion, though, IAM permissions and the initial cloud setup was the main blockers. But working through these challenges help us to understand how Google Cloud services interact, and we've moving on, we would feel way more confident in managing deployments and debugging issues.
All right, thank you, Triet. So my name is Tabriq Amin. For this checkpoint, I focused on setting up the CI/CD pipeline with GitHub Actions, fixing some critical bugs within the Cloud Functions, and streaming the response to the chat, and deploying the front end to the Firebase hosting. I also set up the admin upload page, the admin upload endpoint, and handled some of the cloud infrastructure and billing configuration. So from here, I'll start explaining the functions that we used for our project. We used about 5 functions. So answer, embedded chunk, ingest document, retrieval service, and upload document. So ingest document is one of the functions. Ingest document is triggered when a policy PDF is uploaded into our bucket, specifically the raw folder. So when we click on the raw folder, you can see those are different policy PDFs. And then what this function does is simply just goes to that folder and reads all the different PDFs that have been uploaded there. It breaks the text of each PDF into chunks of 500 characters, and saves each chunk as a TXT file. And from there, it simply just sends that into another bucket or another folder called processed, which is this folder right here. You can see those are all chunks of 500 characters, and they are TXT files. So the reason that each chunk is the size of 500 characters is we found that anything below 500 characters would make the chunk lose a lot of context, and anything above 500 characters would make it really hard to answer specific questions that are sent by the RAs. So 500 characters was kind of the sweet spot. All right, now we're gonna switch into a different function. So this is embed chunk. So it's also a cloud function that is triggered every time a txt file is uploaded into the processed folder. So it's this folder right here. So what it does, it simply just goes through that folder, extracts all the txt files that was newly updated into that was newly uploaded into that folder. It sends it into Vertex AI. Vertex AI converts each chunk into 768 numbers that represents meaning of that text. The function then converts those numbers into JSON file and saves them in the embedding folder, which is this folder right here. Why is this part important, or why is this function important? This what makes the search intelligent. So if this part did not exist, we would have to search for the exact word. But using this, you can ask different variations of a questions about a certain policy, and you would get the right policy every time. So let's say two different RAs want to ask questions about fire alarm. So one asks, "What should I do if a fire alarm happens?" And the other asks, "What do I do during a fire alarm?" They would still get the same policy, and that's exactly the behavior that we're looking for. So now I'll start explaining another function that we are using called the answer function. So this is also a cloud function, but it's a little bit different than the other two functions I've explained, as this one is not triggered by event arc. This one is triggered by an HTTP request that is sent by the user, specifically a post request. So when the user asks a question, it triggers this function. So when this function is triggered, it calls another function called the retrieval function, which is right here, passing in the question from the user. The retrieval function then returns a list of chunks with the score. So the score represents how relevant that chunk to the question. And then what the answer function does, it takes the top chunks with the high score, and it sends that into Gemini, and it asks Gemini to create a human readable response. Gemini sends back the answer, sends back the readable response to answer, and then answer streamline that respond into the back to the user to display it to the front end. Firebase. So for our project structure, AI incident response. So this is where our front end is stored. You can see we have a couple of React component over here, chat input, chat window, message bubble. If we close this and we look down here, we can see those are the different cloud functions that we have talked about earlier. So this is the answer function. Below that, we can see the embedding, which is embed chunk, and then ingestion and the retrieval function and the upload function that we're still talking about, that we are still kind of working on. Then we have a get ignore file to simply just not accidentally commit any files that we don't want to share within our GitHub repo. And then test.py to test the functions that we have created. And that's about it.